Hello everyone, and welcome to the Untold Survivor Stories, where the rain falls gently and survival tales help you drift off to sleep. I'm here to lead you through today's story, helping you relax and drift off to sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'd also love to hear where you're joining us from and what time it is in your area. Feel free to share in the comments. I'm Ethan Cole, a systems engineer. I'm 38 years old now, but before that, I served in the 10th Mountain Division as part of Special Forces. I've seen my fair share of combat. I've lived through hell, but nothing could prepare me for the crash. It happened fast. 1 minute, I was strapped into the chartered Cessna, the engines roaring over the Andaman Sea, trying to fight through the storm's fury. The sky was black with clouds, the wind howling through the thin aluminum frame, and the rain came down like sheets of ice. I knew the storm was bad, but I didn't expect what happened next. It was like someone flipped a switch. There was no warning. One moment, I was gripping the armrests, trying to stay calm, and the next, everything went silent. There was an awful lurch, followed by a bone-jarring impact. The world went dark, and my mind tried to comprehend what had just happened. My body lurched forward, smashing against the seatbelt, and then everything went black. For a few moments I couldn't breathe, and panic crept in. But I fought it. Fought to regain control. My mind screamed for me to stay alert. Then, finally, I heard it. A dull roar, a sensation of weightlessness, and the sickening feeling of gravity pulling me down toward the water. The plane tilted sharply. There was no time to brace myself. The impact was deafening. The last thing I saw was the sea, gray, frothy, and endless, as the fuselage shattered around me. I woke to a chaotic blur. I was in the water, chest deep, struggling to breathe. The cold, salty seawater stung my wounds as I clung to the splintered wing of the plane. My head throbbed with pain, and my body felt like it was on fire. The storm hadn't relented. If anything, it had gotten worse. The rain came down in torrential sheets, and towering waves crashed around me, threatening to drag me under. I could barely see through the downpour, but I could feel the weight of the ocean pulling at me, trying to swallow me whole. The wing beneath me felt like it was the only thing keeping me from sinking into the abyss. But the more I struggled to stay afloat, the more it seemed the sea itself was conspiring against me. I pushed myself up from the wreckage, feeling my body shake from the shock. Adrenaline surged through me, dulling the pain and fear. The storm still raged on, the waves crashing against me, battering me like a rag doll. I kept my grip on the wing, praying it would hold long enough for me to survive. My mind raced through every possibility. There was no radio, no signal, no way to call for help. I had no idea where I was. The only thing I had left was my will to live. I don't know how long I was in the water before I finally saw land. The storm didn't let up, but the island appeared like a dark silhouette against the horizon, a looming presence in the chaos. I had no choice but to swim toward it. Each stroke felt like it was draining the last bit of energy from my body, but I kept going, driven by some primal instinct to survive. The salt water burned my eyes, and my muscles screamed in protest, but the island beckoned. I was determined to make it, no matter the cost. When I finally dragged myself onto the shore, the world around me felt like a nightmare, everything distorted and unreal. The land I had hoped would offer refuge was far from the lush paradise I imagined. It was barren, desolate, and seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. The air was thick, oppressive. There was no sound, not even the usual rustling of the wind. The island felt dead. The island was nothing like I had imagined. It wasn't a tropical paradise. It was a graveyard, an island where time had stopped. The sky overhead was perpetually overcast, the clouds a thick, oppressive blanket. No birds, no animals, not even the sound of wind through the trees. The only sound was the eerie hum that seemed to come from deep within the earth. It reverberated through the ground beneath me, a sound so low it almost felt like it was coming from inside my bones. My instincts screamed at me that something wasn't right, but I couldn't turn back. The storm still roared in the distance, and my chances of survival would be better if I sought shelter. As I staggered across the shore, I could see the remains of old ships, their skeletal frames rusting under the weight of years and salt. The wreckage seemed to stretch for miles, the decaying timbers whispering with the wind. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of rot. It was as if the island was a graveyard for those unlucky enough to have made the same mistake I had, getting caught in the storm. I wasn't sure how many ships had washed up on this forsaken place, but it felt like far too many. The wrecks were eerie reminders of lives lost. And then, there was that hum. Louder now, a constant presence, like the island itself was alive. I should have been scared. Hell, I was scared. But something else gnawed at me. Something deeper. Something colder. It wasn't just the isolation, the crushing weight of loneliness. It was something else. There was something on this island. Something watching. I wasn't alone. At first, I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me. The storm had torn the plane apart, and I was probably concussed, dehydrated, exhausted. But as the days dragged on, the sensation didn't go away. I started hearing things, whispers, like voices in the wind. Sometimes, I could hear what sounded like shouting, like distant screams carried across the water. Other times, it was more subtle, like a murmur in the back of my mind. Voices that sounded like familiar voices. The voices of old friends, comrades I had lost in battle. The whispers twisted them into something dark, distorted, like they were being drowned by the hum of the island itself. The more I listened, the more I realized that these voices weren't just memories or echoes from my past. They were something else. They were manipulating me. They weren't just trying to speak to me. They were trying to control me, to distort my perception of reality. The air felt thick with malice. The very ground beneath my feet seemed to tremble with the weight of it. Whatever this island was, it was far worse than anything I'd encountered in combat. It wasn't just fighting me, it was playing with me. And I was losing, but I couldn't give in. I wouldn't give in. My survival instincts kicked in. Those instincts honed in the mountains, in the heat of battle. My military training, my experience in the field, all of it came rushing back. I couldn't afford to break. Not now. Not when I was this close to the edge. I scavenged what I could from the wreckage of the plane, using what little was left to set up a makeshift shelter. I knew I couldn't just wait around. The island was nothing but death and decay. And if I stayed too long, it would claim me. Just like it had claimed the ships that had washed ashore before me. I spent days trying to find a way off the island. I started piecing together a rudimentary sailboat, using scraps of metal and wood from the wreckage. Rainwater was my only source of fresh water, but it wasn't enough. The days blurred into one long, exhausting fight for survival. And always, those voices. Always the hum. I couldn't escape it. Each day dragged by with no sign of relief, and each night, the voices became louder, more insistent. Sleep was a torment. The creature, Whatever it was, invaded my dreams. It wasn't a physical presence. It didn't need to be. It was something more primal, something deep within my mind, something that played with my memories and fears. In my sleep, I saw it, a formless shadow, always just out of reach, but its tendrils stretched toward me, curling from the depths of the sea. It was always there, always watching, always waiting, and every time I woke up, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, I could still hear it. Those whispers, like a constant chorus of voices I couldn't escape. I was losing my grip on reality. The island was driving me mad. But then, in the darkest moments, something else kept me going. A stubborn refusal to be defeated. I wasn't going to die here, not like this. Not at the mercy of some ancient force I didn't understand. I wasn't going to let it erase me. I wasn't going to forget who I was. Not again. Not after everything I'd been through. Eventually, I finished the sailboat. It wasn't much. Just a patched-together vessel that looked like it might fall apart at any moment. But it was my only chance. The storm was coming again. Another violent surge of wind and rain. But I had no choice. I set out in the makeshift boat, trusting my instincts and the flimsy craft to carry me across the churning sea. The storm hit hard. The waves were monstrous, the rain blinding. I was tossed around like a rag doll, the boat bucking in the fury of the storm. The wind howled through the fabric of my makeshift sail, threatening to tear it apart. I held the rudder tight, my knuckles white with effort. But no matter how hard I tried to steer, the ocean seemed determined to throw me back. The boat was flimsy, barely holding together, and with each passing minute, I feared it would break into pieces. I gritted my teeth against the sting of the salt water. My muscles screamed in protest, my body aching from exhaustion. The pounding rain made it nearly impossible to see, and the horizon was lost in the blackness of the storm. I knew I had no chance of finding my bearings. The island was already a distant, vanishing silhouette. I didn't care about it anymore. I just needed to survive. But as the storm intensified, something changed. The sea, that relentless force, seemed to grow more aggressive. There was a dark presence in the water, something beneath the surface, waiting. I could feel it. The same sense I had on the island, like I was being watched. And the whispers, those damn voices, they were back. Faint at first, but then growing louder with every passing wave. They surrounded me, the same distorted, familiar voices I had heard before, only now they were clearer, more insistent, as if they were screaming in my mind. "Ethan, you can't escape!" I jerked my head to look around, but there was no one, just the storm, the sea, and the boat. But I could feel it, the pressure in the air, like a weight pressing against my chest. It wasn't just the storm anymore. The island, that malevolent force, was trying to drag me back. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog from my brain. I couldn't let it win. Not again. The whispering, the hum of the island, everything was a part of it. Some ancient thing, a presence older than time, was trying to take control of my mind. It was playing a game, testing me. But I wouldn't let it break me. Not this time. The shadow, the thing that had haunted my dreams, was beneath the waves, pulling at the edges of my sanity. It wasn't a physical entity. It wasn't something I could fight. It was something far darker, something intangible, twisting through the currents, trying to drown me in madness. The storm raged on. The waves grew higher, and the rain was coming down like sheets of ice. My sail was torn, flapping uselessly in the wind. I had no choice. I couldn't just sit there and let the sea swallow me up. I had to keep moving, keep fighting. I turned the rudder and pushed forward, letting the waves carry me, trusting my instincts to guide me. Each wave felt like it could be my last. The boat creaked and groaned under the strain, its wooden frame bending in ways it wasn't meant to. I gripped the makeshift sail tighter, bracing myself as the next wave came crashing toward me. The water swelled, rising up like a wall, and I could feel the boat being tossed into the oar, higher and higher. For a moment, I thought I might be flung into the ocean, but I held on. I wasn't going to let go. And then, as if the ocean itself had grown tired of the struggle, there was a sudden change. The wind began to die down. The waves started to recede, shrinking back into the depths. It was like the storm was losing its power. I couldn't believe it. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the sea began to calm. The rain slowed to a drizzle, and the sky, though still dark and oppressive, showed signs of clearing. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My body, battered and bruised, felt like it was about to collapse. But I couldn't afford to rest yet. I still had no idea where I was, no way to know if I was even on the right course. But something had shifted. The storm had passed, and I was still alive. I was drifting now, the current gently carrying me forward. The waves were calm, almost soothing, and the wind had become a whisper, barely enough to fill the sail. I let the boat guide itself for a while, too tired to do much else. The world around me felt quieter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking beneath the surface. That thing in the water, it wasn't gone. It was still there, waiting. I could feel it in the air. Days passed. I lost track of time. The pain from my wounds throbbed relentlessly, and my body felt as though it was falling apart. But the sea had grown merciful. The waves were kinder now, more predictable, and I could feel the boat gliding with purpose. It had to be. It had to be taking me somewhere. And then, one day, the land appeared. At first, it was nothing more than a shadow against the horizon. I squinted through the haze, my eyes barely able to make it out. But as I drew closer, I realized that I wasn't alone anymore. There was a ship in the distance, its sails billowing in the wind, and I felt a surge of hope. A real, solid vessel. A chance at survival. My heart raced as I paddled harder, using whatever strength I had left. The ship didn't seem to notice me at first, and I waved my arms desperately, shouting, but the wind carried my voice away. I kept going, not stopping. I couldn't afford to stop. My muscles screamed in protest, but I pushed through the pain. The ship was so close now, so close I could almost touch it. Finally, they saw me. A man, broad-shouldered and grizzled, leaned over the side of the ship. His eyes went wide with surprise and concern. "What the hell happened to you?" he shouted, his voice booming over the waves. I was lost. I've been on a godforsaken island." Before I could say anything more, they pulled me aboard. And the moment I stepped onto solid ground, I collapsed. I had no energy left to speak. My body, drained from the days of fighting the sea, gave in to exhaustion. As I lay there, I felt the last vestiges of the storm's madness fade, the dark whispers receding into the back of my mind. The doctor asked me how I had survived, what had kept me going. I had no answers for him. I couldn't explain the horrors I had experienced on that island. But in my heart, I knew the truth. It didn't want me dead, I said, my voice hollow, barely a whisper. It wanted me to forget who I was. I didn't let it. And that's the part I'll never forget. The storm, the creature, the island. It was all a test of my mind, of my soul. It wanted to break me, to erase me, but I survived. I won't forget what happened, but I won't let it control me. Not anymore. I had escaped the island, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever had been there, whatever force had tried to break me, was still out there. I'd survived the storm, the whispers, and the creature beneath the waves. But I would never forget. And I wouldn't let myself forget who I was. Not again. The island had tried to erase me, but it had failed. And now, I was free. For better or worse, the past was behind me.